Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cup of Joe with Joe and Joe podcast. I am your host, Joe, and with me, as always, is my wonderful co-host, Joe.
I don't think I should have ate that Wawa burger beforehand.
Uh-oh, what's it doing to you?
I had it with a milkshake as well.
Oh, well, that might be your problem right there.
It hurts.
You have to tough it out, Joe. We have important things to talk about today. And by important things, I mean comics!
It's pretty important.
Yeah, it's pretty important. So again, hello everyone. Episode 25.2, Comic Edition. I got a few. Joe has Uno, both a card game and one comic book to be talking about this week. So, I would like to say, without further ado, let us begin with the Indie Corner of this week. Maybe I'll make that a segment, Joe. Make it Joe's Indie Corner, and then no one will know which Joe is hosting the Indie Corner, because we can both have Indie Corners, and it can be different people, different weeks, doing different Indie Corners. And I've just confused myself now.
I have a crying corner.
Well, let's not delve into that anymore, shall we?
I'm okay.
Okay. All right, so, yeah, I've got 4 books I want to talk about. We're going to split up my talking because I talk too much with Joe talking, and I'm going to talk about the indie books first. So, Joe, you ready for this?
No.
Okay, good, perfect. Up first, I want to talk about something called Geiger number 1. This is by Jeff Johns and Gary Frank, and people might know them from such works as Batman Earth 1. They've done a couple volumes of that. Superman's Secret Origin, that story back in like the 2000s. It's like the updated Superman origin story. And most recently, they have worked on Doomsday Clock, the sequel to Watchmen, that a lot of people don't like because it's a sequel to Watchmen, but I like because it's a good story, and I don't really care. But so this is kind of like their first foray, if you will, into indie book stuff. And it's about the world in 2050. It is a bit of a nuclear wasteland, just a little bit. And by a little bit, I mean you can't step outside without wearing a hazmat suit, so a lot of it. And it follows this one guy. His name is Tarek Geiger, and he lives in Boulder City, Nevada. And so in like 2030, some bombs dropped. I can't remember exactly. I think it was just like a whole worldwide thing where everyone was kind of like, evil, or like, I don't like you, and then they drop bombs or something like that. You know, how militaries work, I don't know, but I assume that's how it works. And so as the bombs were dropping, you're kind of following this one guy, and he's bringing his family into a bunker. He's like, get into the bunker and close the door. I'm going to go grab the dog. And he grabs the dog, and then his neighbors shoot him in the leg. And they're like, we're going to take that bunker and kill your family because we want to have all the resources for ourselves. And you're like, oh, that's mean. But don't worry. The bomb goes off and kills all of them. And then we cut to 20 years later, and Tarek is alive and also a glowing green badass. And I'm like, interesting. This is very strange, but also pretty cool, especially with Gary Frank drawing it, because his illustrations are just immaculate. Like, he is probably one of the best comic artists that are working in the industry today.
So, does this guy basically look like a green Dr. Manhattan?
I guess a little bit. He is an in-shape, glowing guy that's bald, but he also has a cloak, hold up for power charging. Okay, we're good. He also has a cloak and like this weird, I think it's like a ballistic vest, but like on the ballistic vest, it also has like the toxic symbol. So when he glows green, it's like the toxic symbol is just shining through as well. And I'm like, cool. It's you know how Batman always has branding and everything. It's like now he's branded. He's like, look at me, I'm radiation.
Beautiful.
Yes. But yeah, so it's first issue of a series. It seems pretty cool. The ending, like the end of the first issue, you kind of go to like a Camelot setting, and I was a little confused. I was like, "What the hell is this?" But it's a Camelot setting from Vegas. So like Vegas always has those like casinos and hotels that are like weird themed. It's like after the nuclear fallout, some people have taken up residency in some of those places and they've just lost their mind and now believe that they're in like this medieval society and I'm just like this is a little weird, but it kind of ends with that and I'm like, all right, I'm interested to see where this goes now.
You weren't expecting a Monty Python crossover, were you?
I was not expecting the Monty Python crossover. No, when the when the knight came along and was just like, "Ah, 'tis but a flesh wound," and I was reading that, I was like, "Ah, what the hell is this?" And then I realized I was just reading the back of the DVD cover. Any hoozle, on to Noctera number 2. Joe, I don't know if you remember this from a month ago. I was talking about a story where everything went really dark all of a sudden, and then everything turned into monsters. Do you remember any of this?
I have a faint memory.
Okay, good. That's all you need because this picks up with that, and it's following the main character Val, who, if anyone doesn't remember, is a trucker. But like she transports people from place to place, so they're kind of like, I think they make the comparison that she's like Chiron in like Greek and Roman mythology, just kind of like shepherding the dead to their respective places or something like that. But so she's transporting this old guy and his granddaughter, and the old guy is a little strange and kind of creepy, and he's just all like, this is a problem because of technology. And she's like, how would you know that? And he's like, because I'm the cause of it. And you're like, okay. And then the villain guy shows up. His name is Blacktop Bill. And he's just a silhouette because apparently he bonded his body with something. So now he's just like, it's his clothing and his body is just black all over, like just midnight black. You can't see any features on him except for his smile, kind of like the Batman Who Laughs variant cover that I sent you. Remember that, where it was just the teeth and the crown thing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he kind of looks like that, which is weird to me because this is also written by Scott Snyder, the guy who created Batman Who Laughs. I'm like, you really like this character design thing. Okay, I guess it's cool. It makes sense for this world where everything is like in a perpetual nighttime sort of thing. But I'll give it to you, Scott Snyder. I assume you know what you're doing. World-renowned comic book writer. But so it's just continue to follow those adventures and see what's going on there. And Val is taking her brother along with the two, like the grandfather and the grandson, or granddaughter, sorry, to their next place and is currently being chased by Blacktop Bill. So it's like tense little adventure kind of chase sequence thing going on, and it leaves off at a cliffhanger. You're like, oh no, I gotta get the next issue to see what happens. So yeah, both of those things, just a couple little indie recommendations. They're but like Geiger number 1 just came out, so if you're interested in that, go ahead and pick it up. Noctera, this is only the second issue, so you don't have much to catch up on. It's like 1, 2, boom, you're done. If either of those sound interesting, go for it, baby.
Beautiful. I will say the
Daka.
Noctera story sounds very, very interesting.
Mm.
It's Blade Runner time. Y'all ready for this? Oh god.
Wonderful.
Oh god. Okay, well, I guess that means we have to review the new Space Jam movie.
I have no interest in any of that.
Really? Come on. You gotta have a little interest.
I think I saw the original Space Jam movie when I was younger, and I didn't give a shit. And I saw the trailer for this one like a week after it came out because not everyone, like I heard people talking about it like once or twice, and then I saw it just like around YouTube, and I was like, I guess I'll see what some people are talking about. And I click on it, and I watch the images go by, and I felt nothing.
Okay, well, fine. We're not gonna watch it. So let's talk about some Blade Runner. Blade Runner 2029, number 4. We left off with my girl Ash being abducted by one of the replicants that Mr. Yotun has created, and my man Yotun was crashing a party for some of the higher ups in the city. And so basically, Jotun, this replicant who is he survived his warranty, which was only I think it was only supposed to be like 4 or 5 years, but he survived it. And I think I remember telling you that they have like some form of like a cult where like other replicants give up their life force and give it to him so that he can live longer. Is this
Yeah, I do
refreshing?
remember
Okay,
that.
okay. So he wants a violent replicant revolution. Um, and
A
that's
violin replicant revolution, you say?
yes.
Everyone's going to be playing the violins and just. You can't see it, but I'm like doing the violining motion and just like dancing around my room.
So Jotun takes over the party ship with him and his homies that are so him and his homies take over the party ship. There's the higher ups in the city and they're all on this ship. He's like, all right, let's go take them for a cruise. Stay on the scheduled course because we don't want to draw any attention. And he shows up and he's talking to all the higher ups. He's like, all right, guys, you're going to listen to me, enjoy your dinner. We're just going to go on a little detour. And and so they go to the seawall, which I think I had mentioned that they are building because it's like they had like a big tsunami and everything like that. And they're like, oh, we're going to make a seawall to protect us. And they're like, okay, that's going to work. And so you find out that the replicants that he's been creating, they have been working on the seawall since usually they don't hire humans to do that. Why not just have a bunch of replicants do the dirty work? Well, while they were building it, they hid explosives in the seawall. So
Ah,
he blows it up and floods LA, and it's
as you do.
kind of a big deal. And all during this time, you're also flashing back to see what's going on with Ash. And right now, Ash is bonded in the kind of like cult room where they had like the ceremony to make Jotun live. And the one girl's like, "Oh, you must be patient. Jotun wants to see you, but he has a mission he must complete." And then this other replicant shows up, and he's like, "Hey, you saved me all these years ago, so I'm gonna save you." And she's like, "Yeah, thanks, man." And helps her out, and basically he helps her out, and he takes her to the room where like all the tubes are with the replicants in them. And what we
The
learn is that he
replicant. The
the
replicant tube room.
yes,
Ah.
yes. And we find out that it's not that he's creating new replicants. He's reviving old ones. So these replicants, let me get my terms right. These are the Nexus 8s that were never shipped, and in this is like they had like the big blackout where like all the info of the replicants disappeared and you couldn't
Oh,
track them.
yeah.
Yep. So these are all the replicants that they were supposed to kind of just like throw out, and they're like, yeah, just let them decay, it's fine. So somehow Yutun stole them, and basically he's giving them all new life and reviving them. And basically the dude is telling Ash like, yeah, he's kind of like being this like prophet dude saying we're gonna start a new world, but in reality it's kind of just for him. And then his speech kind of gets cut off because he gets shot in the stomach by one of the replicants that are helping Yotan. And you're like,
Yeah,
oh shit.
that
You're
tends
like,
to
oh
cut
shit.
one speech off.
Yeah, you're like, oh shit, like, what happened? What does he really want to do? And you don't know, and it then finishes the story with that Jotun leaves the ship that had all the party people on it. He hops on this little smaller ship with his replicant buddies, and he's like, all right, you guys, I just wanted you to see that. Have a good night. And then he leaves, and he goes, actually, psych, and he blows up the ship with all the higher-ups in it.
Oh my god.
And he said, and then at the end, he says, Los Angeles is dead. Long live Los Angeles.
Uh-huh. The classic literary device of just repeating the same thing.
It's quite intense. I did not think it was going to be going down this alley, but it's pretty cool. It's got me interested, and I don't know. I continue to love the art. I continue to Love the story, and it's Blade Runner. You can't go wrong with Blade Runner.
No, you can't go wrong with Blade Runner. I enjoy how it's taking a more resistance like approach to how like the replicants like how the replicants are working. Being that I mean, I haven't seen any of the movies, but if I did, I imagine they don't really delve into that all too much. So it's cool since I haven't seen those movies and imagine that's how they would work. It's cool to see that this series is kind of delving a bit more into that sort of radical revolutionary kind of mindset for these guys. The radical revolutionary replicants, Triple R.
Just like,
Is that a rapper?
no, but I know dumpster diving for Dunkin' Donuts is a nice alliteration.
That is a nice alliteration. Do you want to explain that, or are we just going to leave that hanging in the air?
Spring break, everybody.
That's all we need. That's it. All right. Ready to move on to my last two things?
I guess.
Okay, so Joe, Swamp Thing is back, baby. I picked up issue 2, and let me tell you, I opened up this book, and I don't know if it was just like the coloring on this book, like the colorist was just like, all right, now I'm gonna bring my A game or whatever. But I opened this thing and I was like, oh Christ, this looks great. Like the art, like all the lines and the inking and everything like that. I was kind of like, yeah, this is fine. It's not really my cup of tea. It's grittier and more, I don't know, earthy is kind of like the tone, like the descriptive word I want to go for, which makes sense for a Swamp Thing book. So it works well in that aspect. But then also for me, I'm just sort of like, yeah, I like my lines to be like a little bit thinner, a little more like hatching and stuff like that, blah, blah, blah. But the coloring on this book, oh my God, the atmosphere that it was able to give off was incredible. The different, like there's a scene, before I get into story stuff, there's a scene where it was just like a bar, and the bar was like steeped in like these deep greens, but then also the drink that they were pouring into their glass was like this weird ethereal like pink sort of a thing, and I was like, what the hell? It didn't look like it should work, but it did. And it was like the liquid coming out, and it was like this golden brown thing, and I was like, all these colors that are sort of like super rich, and I was like, what is any of this? And then also like the desert aspects of it were also like these like sepia oranges, and then you have Swamp Thing walking around as like his earthy greens and browns, and I was just like, baby, these colors are good, man. But so this book picks up. Oh, go.
I was gonna say that, like, I feel like sometimes, like, when with mediocre art, good color can be all that you need. Um, like I don't know, it just made me think about the Broly movie, like the original
Yeah.
one. Like, I was thinking about it. Like, I really do enjoy love. I love watching that movie. It's so much freaking fun. Even though the story is like the most mundane, like really not that good of a story, it is so fun to watch because I mean it's the stereotypical like Dragon Ball art style, but the freaking colors in that movie, it is mind blowing. And it's like when you can get the colors right, it can really make whether it's a comic or an anime or anything like that, it can make it from good to freaking awesome.
Yeah, so I was very happy seeing that. I was just like, all right, bring your A game, man. I appreciate it. But yeah, so getting into this book picks up because again, this is a 10 issue miniseries by Ram V, and so he doesn't have like that much time to do stuff, but it moves along at a bit of a clip. But I appreciate that. And so going into it, you pick up and the main character, if you remember from last time we talked about this, name is Levi. He kind of just pops out of a tree in the first page. Like you see the panels like going down the first page. It's just him forming out of a tree and then falling to the ground. And he's like, curled up almost in like a fetal position sort of thing. And I was like, we're being artsy here. It's like his rebirth from nature into the world. So I was like, haha, I'm an artist. I can pick up on these things. But so the story, he kind of goes back to Jennifer's apartment, which is like, I think either his ex-girlfriend or current girlfriend or something. It's kind of left ambiguous, but they have a connection of some kind. And I'm 99% certain they're not siblings. Uh, Whatever. But so he goes back to her, and she can see something's been bothering him, and you learn over the course of the book that this has been happening. It's like the first time in the last issue that we see him do this was the first time that he ever became Swamp Thing and appeared in the desert in front of the Pale Walker, which was the guy who lived out in the desert and like drank oil or some shit for like 100 years and is now killing people for seemingly no reason. Although I think there might be a reason further down the line, but we'll get there in a second. But so he's been doing this for like the entire week. He just keeps going there and meeting up with the Pale Walker, and the Pale Walker like kills someone in front of him, or someone's already dead, and he's just like, "What you gonna do about it, bro?" And then he just is like torn to shreds by the Pale Walker, and then he wakes back up in the apartment, and he's like, "What the fuck is going on?" And so he tells this all to Jen. I don't know if he tells everything, but he's talking about it with Jen, and she is like, "I don't fully believe any of this right now, but also I understand that you're going through a tough time, and I will do whatever I can to help you." And so he's like, "Cool." And so they talk for a little bit more, and she kind of tells him, maybe this is like means this, and this is what you need to do, and it might be a good thing. And so he's like, that may have been just what I needed to hear. And so this time when he goes and he reconstitutes himself as a Swamp Thing in the desert, he meets up with a Pale Walker, and one of the cops from the first issue, he was the guy in the bar, and that's where I was talking about the greens and the purples and all that sort of crap. He came out back to the desert because he's like being driven insane because he saw the Pale Walker, and he's like, monsters exist in this world and I have nothing left to live for. I'm going to go out and confront him. And so Pale Walker confronts the cop, Swamp Thing constitutes himself, and then Pale Walker is all like, haha, gonna kill this cop in front of you and he's still gonna do nothing. And Swamp Thing this time is like, nope, and he tackles the Pale Walker to the ground. And Pale Walker's like, what the hell are you doing now? He's like, oh, I can see you've got some fight in you tonight. And then Pale Walker gets on top of him and just like Kali Ma's Swamp Thing, he just rips his heart out of his chest, and it's like this beating green mass of vines and crap, and I'm like, oh no. And then he eats it in front of him, and he's like, you can do nothing to stop me. And I'm just like, oh my god. And then Swamp Thing is finally just like, no, you know what, I ain't gonna stand for this no more. And it looks like he grabs him and like vines start coming up around him, but then what I actually think happens, because vines start coming out of him, is that the heart that the Pale Walker just ate is now growing inside of him and just erupts out of him, and it keeps growing over the course of like 2 pages into this massive, hang on, I wrote it down because it's a specific tree, a banyan tree. And it's like, when I say massive, I mean think of like Castle in the Sky massive, just in this desert, just this lone monster of a tree.
Jesus Christ.
It is quite good, I will say. I really enjoyed that. And then at the very end, so like he kind of, the night ends or whatever, and he goes back to being Levi living with Jen. And this time, like, Jen wakes up and Levi's the first one up and already making breakfast for her, which, he's been sleeping in because he's been a wreck for like the entire week or month or however long it's been. And so she's like, oh, what's all this? And he's like, I just wanted to thank you for like, helping me through all of this. Like, even if you didn't fully believe it, you really helped pull me out of my ass. And she's like, oh, cool. And then you see it like cuts away to like a bunch of news coverage, because just in the middle of this desert is this massive tree native to India, and they're like, what the hell is this doing here? And
That's
then
so sick.
You see, yeah, and then you see, wait for this part, where it cuts to a couple different people looking at the news feeds, like people in bars, people in like just their homes, and then from behind, Batman in the Batcave is looking at it, and I'm just like, oh, are we gonna get a Batman cameo in the Swamp Thing book? Like, is he actually gonna appear or something? So I was interested in that, and then at the very end, the last person to see it is some guy in a boardroom, like draped in shadow, and he's just like, bring me everything we have on like this file. And he's like, certainly, Mr. Pilgrim. And he brings him the file, and you see Levi and Jennifer. He's got like a photo of them, and then he's also got a photo of Swamp Thing. That's a different file, but I'm like, ooh, and that's the last shot. So Mr. Pilgrim might be a new possible villain that we got going on, and there might be a Batman cameo in the book, and I'm like, ooh, baby.
That all sounds awesome.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but like, I'm really liking this Swamp Thing book.
The fact of like the scene of him ripping out the heart and like I can only imagine it. Like like I'm making these own visuals in my head as you're talking about it, and to just eat the heart and then like slowly realize like, oh shit, the heart's actually growing inside of him. Oh my god, that's the type of shit I would live for.
Yeah, it's quite good. So, I look forward to the remaining, what is it, 8 issues that come out to this, and I can't wait to tell you more about it. And I hope like the coloring and like storytelling just remains to be this good, because honestly, I kind of liked they built up the mythos of the Pale Walker, and then he seems like he's dead now. So I'm just sort of like, like where's it going to go from here? And I hope that the next antagonist can be or have as much of a presence as the Pale Walker did in like the first 2 issues. But yeah, so then I have one more thing to talk about here, and he was a cameo in the previous one. That's right. It's Batman number 107, baby, by James Tynion IV, and art by Jorge Jimenez. So like I said, art in the Swamp Thing book, pretty good. Art in all of these books, honestly, is pretty damn good. But Jorge Jimenez's art is like if everyone else in here was scattered between like A, S, and like double S tier. Jorge Jimenez is like quadruple S tier art. Like the kind of stuff that he does, it's like a perfect blend of manga and comic book and just kinetic energy. It's like you take all of those and you mush it together, and then it's like, oh my god, you get this incredible art. So every page, like, and there's not like one thing that I can really pinpoint because everything in it looks great. The way he draws Batman is great. Harley Quinn is in this book because she's like trying to be a good person now and is like calling herself the unofficial like sidekick of Batman. And she looks amazing, and she rides a motorcycle, and Gotham looks like it's on the way towards Neo Gotham with like all these neon signs and stuff, but it's still like gritty and grimy like Blade Runner stuff. And I'm just like, oh my god, it's so cool. But all of it looks great. And then getting into story stuff, it is very unique because James Tynion, and I know a lot of people are also like not really for this, but as someone who hasn't really been on an ongoing Batman run since like when did Snyder and Capullo and New 52 run ended, I think in 2016. So it's been like 5 years since I've been on an ongoing Batman saga. And so hopping into this, James Tynion makes a lot of new characters in his run. Like I have a list of them because I knew I was gonna make this point. You have Ghostmaker, you have Simon Saint, the guy who's gonna introduce the the magistrate program to Gotham. You have the Gardener, you have Mayor Nakano, the Unsanity Collective, Miracle Molly, and Clown Hunter. You have like 7 different characters that have all been introduced in the span of like 7 issues, and so it's like building this entire new kind of Gotham mythos. And I don't know how to feel about, like, it's all just introductions for a lot of this stuff, and it seems like it could go to some cool places, but I'm not quite sure how it's going to go yet. I just hope he like does some cool stuff with it. But yeah, so this book is basically just Batman kind of going around trying to figure out what all has been going on in Gotham, and like trying to solve there's like something going on with Scarecrow, as we saw in the last one, like the new Scarecrow design. He's working with Simon Saint, the magistrate guy, and is terrorizing Mayor Nakano, and you find out it's because Scarecrow and Saint are working together, and because Scarecrow is inciting so much fear, they're hoping it'll drive the mayor to then bring about the magistrate program. Like he'll be like so fearful that he'll be like, okay, we need this sort of thing in this city. And so that's kind of like what's going on there. So Batman's trying to solve what Scarecrow's got planning, and in order to do that, he's talking with Barbara Gordon, who is Oracle in this book, not Batgirl. So she's sitting in her chair, going through all the computers and stuff, and she looks awesome. Like, even just sitting behind a desk, the way Jimenez draws it, he's just like, okay, and Barbara's gonna look sick as fuck sitting behind this desk typing things on a computer, and I'm just like, yes, she is. Thank you, Jorge. But so she's talking to him, and she's like, all right, so there's something called the Unsanity Collective. They're like a new gang because they're not sane or insane. They reject both of those concepts. And Batman's like, I gotta like get in with them to see what's going on. And she's like, yep. So what are you gonna do? And he's like, he just walks away. You can tell he's thinking. And then the end of the book is someone arriving at like one of their back alley like hangout spots. You know, it's like a door and there's a guy standing in front of it, and he's just like, hey pal, you're in the wrong neighborhood. And he's like, I want to become a part of the Insanity. And he's like, really? And the last shot is of a guy. He's got like red hair and a big trench coat, and he's like, yeah, my name is Matches, let me in, or something like that. And so for people who don't know, Batman, or Bruce Wayne, has this this fake persona called Matches Malone that he will become to infiltrate stuff. But it's like such a weird like side thing in like modern comics that like most people never knew it existed. So the fact that I'm seeing it now, I'm just like, cool, kind of a deep cut, but I'm here for it.
All that sounds really cool. And the big thing, I always thought, like, I'm like, wow, I'm like, a lot of these Batman characters and just these general, like, stereotypical comic villains, like, I'm like, they've all been around for like a really long time. I'm like, you don't see it too often that like, oh, it's a new villain that really like sticks around and kind of becomes like a staple. Um, and I don't know, that's something I always wanted. Like, in order to get new villains, you're gonna have to, new characters, you're gonna have to try out a bunch of them, and some of them aren't gonna work. But every once in a while, like if this dude wants to try what 7 new characters, like even if one of them becomes, like maybe 20 years from now is still a character, like that, I think that's a good thing to shoot for.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's like it's a breath of fresh air. It's like, okay, here's my run. It's gonna be characters that you know of, like Scarecrow and Harley Quinn, but they're gonna be changed, and also here's a bunch of new stuff.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds very interesting. And I think it's, yeah, I think it's very cool to try out new characters and have your own little touch on things because hey, like if that's your run on it and that's your time to do it, why not just use it to your advantage and try and be as creative as you can? Don't be limited with just being like, okay, I have a limited set of characters I got to use. Oh, let me think of a new refresh of the Joker or something. Like, just if you have something that you want to come up on your by yourself, like then use it.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm enjoying this. So that was Batman 107, Swamp Thing number 2, Nocterra number 2, Geiger number 1, and which Blade Runner was it?
2029 number 4.
Blade Runner 2029 number 4. All seemingly pretty good. If anyone is listening and you want to get into comics, honestly, get in on, well, maybe not the Batman one because that's a lot of stuff that you need to get into. But anything else that we talked about, probably pretty cool that you can just jump in on. Anything else you have to say about the comic she is?
I have nothing I'm picking up this week.
Really?
There's nothing.
Yeah, well, there is. Hang on, there was something that I wanted to talk to you about real quick. Because there are only 2 things I'm picking up this week. I'm picking up the Wonder Woman book, going back to Norse Wonder Woman, baby. And also Spider-Man Spider's Shadow. Did you see this book at all, Joe?
I did see it on there, but I know nothing about it.
It's written by Chip Zdarsky again, the guy who did Life Story. Yeah. And it's a 4-issue thing. The synopsis, like the general overview, is Spider-Man has the symbiote suit, and basically what happens if he just ignores all the telltale signs that it's kind of driving him morally bad. Yeah, so if that changes your mind, so that might be a book that you want to pick up, because that's definitely something I'm picking up.
I'm gonna get it.
Wonderful. Yeah, I figured if you didn't know about that, I was like, I better tell you. So yeah, you know, that's a coming around. Yeah, so those are the two books that we're picking up next week. We got Wonder Woman, and then we got Spider-Man: Spider's Shadow by Chip Zdarsky. I'm excited for that, and I don't want to be too excited because it's not the same as Life Story, but I'm like, oh yeah. Okay, that's been this week's comics, everybody. And so with that, I shall say, like, comment, subscribe, all that beautiful stuff. And with that, we leave you, we love you, and goodbye.